Dear students, welcome to the course HS1317 Introduction to the Metaphysics of Sanskrit Language. This is lecture 4. In the previous lecture, we have already gone through few of the contents like what is language, difference between Bhasha, Vak and Vadi, then spoken and compositional language. Under this topic, we have covered classification of knowledge based on Upanishads, then Indian knowledge systems, then I explained what are the possible modes of understanding of classification of the Shastra, so 6 modes of classification. And then we began with the Shastra itself, because the 6 modes of classifications are going to help us in detail what Shastra is, and I defined you the Shastra. So now we are going ahead after the Shastra. Second mode of classification, as we have already dealt with the first mode, that is the previous diagram, figure 1.2, where we understood what is the definition of the Shastra, how it is classified in 2 categories, Shruti and Smriti, then what are the constituents of Shruti and then what are the constituents of Smriti. Moving ahead, now the Shastra can also be classified as Agam and Nigam. This figure 1.3 is showing us the classification of the Shastra, which has 2 categories, Nigam and Agam. Now the question is, what is Nigam? So if you, just like I explained in the first lecture, that in Sanskrit we have a tendency to define everything. Just like I defined a lot of other terms like Rishi, Rishayaha Mantra Drishtaraha. In the same way, we can define Nigam and Agam also. What is Nigam? If somebody asks you, define Nigam, you can say Nigamyante anen iti nigamaha. Just like Nigamyante anena iti nigamaha. So this is the derivational definition, how to define Nigam. And what does it mean actually? Nigaman is a term which is generally used for derivation. When we derive something, suppose you are solving a problem in the mathematics, you are trying to derive a formula. So that is a derivation. So derivational method is something which is understood as Nigaman Paddhati. And when we define this term Nigam, especially with the reference of the Vedic corpus, then it is understood that Vedic corpus is a kind of collection of already concluded knowledge. Whenever you read the Vedas ever in your life, whenever you get a time to read the Vedas directly with the help of auxiliary sciences, that is Vedāṅgas, then what is going to happen with you, or what will be the experience? You will find that there are so many mantras, richa, under the head of a sukta, and in each of the sukta we are offering prayers to the natural deities. Natural deities means natural constituents of the nature, like Agni, Indra, so many deities which are none but the natural constituents. So we offer the prayers to all those kind of deities in order to actually preserve us. You can say like we pray to them that you make us feel good, you make us in a sense of living in an equilibrium with all other constituents of life or cosmos. So in these kind of positive thoughts are prayed in the mantras. First thing is that. And second thing is that in that mode itself, just like I will give you one example, when we pray Shanno Mitraha Sham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvar Yamaha. What is this mantra? This mantra is from an Upanishad, where Taittiriya Upanishad, the name of that Upanishad is Taittiriya Upanishad. And here what is being done? We are praying to different deities to protect us. Sham Naha. Naha means us. In Vedic literature, for us, we use the word Naha. So what is being said in this mantra? Continuously they are praying to the deities to protect us, and this protection is not like there is a suspicion that whether you will be able to protect us or not. No, there is no suspicion. They know that these are the powers which are going to help us to live our life. So they naturally offer the prayers to protect us. So here there is no dilemma, no confusion that whether you exist or not. Whether Agni exists or not, we don't have a confusion. That means whatever knowledge is available in the Vedas or in Nigama Shastra, that is already concluded knowledge. So in short, you can understand that Nigam is that which has already been concluded. So it's being derived, already derived. When derivation is successful, then something becomes a theory. Then something becomes a complete understanding. So you can understand that Nigama Shastra deals with the already concluded knowledge where there is no question of doubt. That's why it's an authoritative knowledge. And that's why it is regarded as the highest possible understanding of the cosmos. So Nigam is the fifth word which is again used for the Vedic corpus itself. So as in the previous lecture I explained you, like we have four words, Shruti, Samhita, Chandas and Ved for the Vedic corpus. Now you have another word for the same Vedic corpus, the fifth word, that is Nigam Shastra. So Vedas are known by these 5 types of possible names. Now again let us understand what is Nigam and Agam. Here you can see that the word Ved is composed of Vid-jñāne. I explained in yesterday's lecture that Vid is the root from which Ved term gets derived, and Vid means to know something, Jnāne arthe, that means to know something. So whatever is being known, whatever knowledge we possess, that is Ved. And this means that in totality the knowledge is one, we don't classify it. So if suppose somebody asks you that in totality what can be the term to identify knowledge, you can say Ved, because Ved is derived from Vid root, which means to know something. So whatever is being known, that is Veda, nothing else. कुछ भी जो मैं जान रही हूँ वो सब कुछ वेद है, क्योंकि वो मुझे विदित हो चुका है, इसीलिए विदित शब्द बनता है. In Sanskrit we have vidit word. Vidit means that has already been known to by me, that is already concluded or understood knowledge. So whatever knowledge we have, that is Veda, simple. And in totality that is only one. But for the sake of our understanding, our own comfort, because if once you understand this course, you will feel like the corpus is so big, our 50 years of our life, if average lifespan 50 years can be taken, then also we won't be able to comprehend all the corpus, one by one, word by word. इतना ज़्यादा बड़ा corpus है. And right now we are also not habituated with the study of the Vedas. So the complete thing has been gone to the secondary aspect. So you don't need to experience it, you can easily comprehend it. Like कि आपकी पूरी ज़िंदगी कम पड़ जाएगी, इतना सारा ज्ञान है. So if for the sake of our own comfort, as like you in the examination, before the examination you will ask me, ma'am, what is going to be the most important thing for the examination? Because we feel like whatever you have taught, that is too much for us. So आपको जानना है कि क्या सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरी होगा. In the same way, for the sake of our own comfort, we classify it. And that is something which is here mentioned, like for the sake of our understanding, this knowledge has been classified in 4 parts, that is 4 Vedas: Ṛgveda, Yajurveda, Sāmaveda and Atharveda. Apart from it, Nāṭya is also considered as one of the Veda. That is 5th Veda, because Nāṭya or the kala of abhinaya, dance, song, singing, these are also a kind of knowledge. So that's why they are also considered as the 5th Veda. Now here Ṛgveda is dominant of the study of the Samhita. If you elaborately go through the content, because I told you that for the sake of our understanding we classify it. So, what Ṛgveda corpus exactly has? It's a collection of the Samhita text. That means a spoken version of the mantras, and with the markers of Uddat, Anuddat, Swarit. These are the pitch that, or you can say frequencies, where we need to raise the voice to recite the mantra, then where we need to slow down, and where we need to maintain the middle one, pace. So, Uddat, Anuddat and Swarit, these are the three possible types of frequencies which are used in the recitation of the mantras. So, Ṛgveda is dominant of the Samhita or the spoken text, and then Yajurveda is dominant of the study of various yogic practices. I told you that what is Yaj in previous lectures. We performed the Yaj in our daily routine because we were living in the equilibrium state with the nature. So, in the nature we offer everything to all the constituents of the nature which are present in our surroundings. So, in that sense Yaj was a type of or you can say Yaj was a symbolic representation through which the natural cosmic cycle was maintained. So, Yajic practices were clearly, or you can say dominantly, described or mentioned in the Yajurveda. Then Sāmaveda deals with the study of devotional cults which are based on the music, Samagana Parampara. That is why I told you that chorus, they are recited. That is why Veda is known as Chandas, because we recite it. So, chorus way, or you can say musical way, that is a Samagana, and that is why the third Veda is named as Sāmaveda. And last is the Atharveda, which deals with the worldly knowledge of all the types, like what are the possible diseases, what are the possible cures, what is the prevention method. And remember, this Atharveda has an Upa-veda, that is Ayurveda. So, Ayurveda is not a kind of a medicinal practice, it is a kind of science dealing with the longevity. Ayurveda, if you split the word Ayuhu, then Veda, Ayuhu becomes Ayush. So, Ayush-Veda, that sciences, that knowledge which deals with the longevity, that is Ayurveda. So, in brief, basically or technically the fundamental ground of the Ayurveda is to how to preserve our longevity. Right now we are not in a state to claim that we will be living up to 100 years. That is the average age which has been defined by Upanishad itself. In Isha Upanishad, the first mantra says we should be desirous of living hundreds years of our life. That means in a Kali Yuga the prescribed Ayu was of average 100 years, but we are in a state that we cannot reach to the 50 or 60, we cannot even imagine that we will be very well up to the 60 or 50. Why? Because we have already forgot how to practice, how to keep the Ayush, how to keep the longevity of our own existence. That is why Ayurveda becomes Ayush-Veda. So, now in the Nigama Shastra, same Vedic corpus is available. In the verses of the Vedas which are known as Rik, and the choral part is known as Sāma. So, here you can understand what is difference between actual spoken text and actual Sāma, that, or you can say the sung part, sung portion, the chorus portion. When we recite the mantra, we can read the mantra without making a kind of musical pattern. This is also a method of recitation. So, if you speak or you read the mantras without making a choral way of singing, that is Rik, Samhita part, okay. And when you recite it in a choral way, in the form of a song, it will become a Sāma. So, Sāma Gan Parampara ho jayegi. That is the difference between the simple spoken Samhita version and the second one, that is the choral version, or you can say Sāma version. The one which is without any rhyme, that becomes a Yajus, because in Yajus we just offer the things like the dominant word for the yajna is swaha. When we do the swaha, that means we are offering that thing to the deity or to the constituent for which we are doing that particular kind of task. So, that portion becomes a Yajus. So, in short, if you consider that this much is the knowledge holistically without any classification, then you can classify it on the basis of the simple spoken text as Samhita, then the sung version as Sam, and then the normal version which is being offered, that is Yajus. So, these are the three possible types on the basis of the constituents or the contents which are available in the Vedas. Now, there are many Upa-vedas also. After this, you can understand that in the Nigama Shastra itself, we have 4 Vedas plus the 5th Veda, that is Nāṭya, and then we have Upa-vedas also, in which first 4 are well accepted: Ayurveda, that is the science of longevity; then Gandharva-veda, that is the science of fine arts. Then Sthāpatya-veda is the science of architecture, how to build. That Dhanur-veda is the last one, that is science of archery, how to practice or how to be ready for the war or battle. So, Dhanur-veda is the 4th one. Ayurveda, Gandharva-veda, Sthāpatya-veda, and then Dhanur-veda. These are the 4 well accepted Upa-vedas. Now, after this, Vedāṅgas are 6 in number. As I told you in the previous chart also, that we can classify Vedas into 4 Vedas, then 5th one is Nāṭya one, then Vedāṅgas, Śikṣā, Kalpa, Vyākaraṇa, Chanda, Nirukta and Jyotiṣa. So, what is Śikṣā? I tried to explain in the last lecture that when we are going to study Vedas, first we need to know how the sounds must be uttered. Suppose there is a mantra, I am taking the same example, Sham no mitraha. If I am not able to recite this Sham sound, so I won't be able to recite the mantra. So, first of all, what is being taught to us, how to pronounce that particular sound. For example, because we belong to this subcontinent, so we are very fortunate. But suppose there is a person who is coming to us for traditional understanding of the Vedas, for learning of the Vedas from some foreign country, and that person does not have the proper accents, because already it's natural that his or her mother tongue will be different. So, maybe the person won't be able to pronounce each and every sound of the mantra in that comfortable way in which we are familiar. We are not having so much of complications or problems in pronouncing Sham, Naha, Mitraha. We are familiar with the sounds, but for that person it will be very tough. So, for them first we teach Śikṣā, how to pronounce that sound. So, pronouncing or phonetics is a Śikṣā Shastra. So, phonetics deals with the proper articulation and pronunciation, where to articulate, where to whether your tongue is going to touch the teeth or whether tongue is going to touch the upper palate. So, these kind of fine things are taught to the student first. So, this is done by Śikṣā Shastra, phonetics. Second is Kalpa. Kalpa is performing modes or rituals, and these are 4 types. First is Shrotra Sutra, second is Dharma Sutra, third is Griha Sutra, and then last is Shulva Sutra. These are in the form of sutras. As I told you, just like in mathematics, we have formulas, a plus b whole square, this is a formula. So, in the same way in Sanskrit, sutra is a style of writing or composition. So, these texts, Shraut, Dharma, Griha and Shulva, they are in the style of, they have been written in a style of sutra. So, that is why they are suffixed with the Shautra Sutra, Dharma Sutra, then Griha Sutra, then Shulva Sutra, and what they represent or what they contain. Shautra Sutra defines the social conduct, how to behave in a society, in the form or in the style of Sutra itself. That means very briefly, a plus b whole square कह देने से ही आपका पूरा काम चल जाएगा. मतलब इतने छोटे से सूत्र में ये बता दिया जाएगा कि कैसे सोसाइटी में बिहेव करना है. शौत्र सूत्र contains the sutras which are describing the societal conduct, social conduct. Then Dharma Sutra, they are describing the individual conduct, how to behave with yourself. That is also very necessary. And then Griha Sutra, family conduct. Shulva Sutra, creation of the Yajya Kunda. When we are going to practice the Yajya or we are going to perform a Yajya, then how to create that particular kind of Yajya Vedi. You must have seen that 3 steps are there. The one is the largest one, then the second is lesser in the size, on the top of the first one, then the third one. So 3 steps. In the same way, we have steps in our temples also. Before reaching to the Garbhagriha of any temple, we have to cross that ladders. It's always like that. Why? And in the same way, in the architecture, we can see that the temple top is conversing. Why? There is a science. It converses our energy, it condenses our energy. So once we will move ahead to the mantratmaka aspect of bhasha, I will touch these things in detail, how we have to condense our energy at a single locus, and for that particular task itself, we have this kind of architecture in our temples also, in our Yajya Vedi also. We have to condense everything at a single locus. So how to make that Yajya Kund, that is being dealt in detail in Shulva Sutras. Then next is Vyākaraṇa, grammar, and grammar lays down the rules for structuring different sentences. We all know Chanda is meter. As I told you, why we use the word Chandas for the Vedic corpus, because it is meter bound. So Chanda is meter, and this is science of prosody or metrics. Then Nirukta. Nirukta is a dictionary of the Vedic words. Just like I told you to download the application Shabda Kalpadrum and Vachaspatyam from Google Play Store, right? These are the dictionaries which are available to us for the Sanskrit language, for both maximally for the Laukic words and including few of the Vedic words also. But Nirukta directly deals with the Vedic mantras. In Vedas, whatever words, whatever sounds are available, and we are not able to identify or to link that particular sound with the meaning, then we can take the help of Nirukta. Nirukta is a Vedic dictionary. This establishes relation of the word with its meaning by presenting etymology or explanation of difficult Vedic words. Just like I told you, this is not necessary that we are using word pen for this structure. It is not necessary that in the future our generations will use the same word for representing the same identity. In the same way, when Vedas are were left from the mainstream of education, a lot of people who tried to understand the Vedas were not in a state to access or to actually relate the sounds with its actual meaning. For that purpose only, we have 6 Vedāṅgas, where Nirukta is dealing with the relationship of that particular sound with that specified meaning, that is Nirukta. Then last is Jyotiṣa. Jyotiṣa is also very interesting thing. You remember, it is not astrology, it is astronomy. Why? Because Jyotiṣa is related with the planetary positions for understanding seasonal variations. In our country, fortunately, we have so many of the seasons. Seasonal variations are a lot. And for understanding this kind of variations, accessing the planetary positions or geospatial locations, we had this Jyotiṣa Shastra, and you split the word Jyotish. This word is like Jyotihi, then Shastra, and in Sanskrit, when we do Sandhi, this Visarg becomes Murdhanyasha. So it became Jyotish-shastra. So now you can easily understand the meaning. Jyotish-shastra. Jyoti means luminosity, luminosity. Any luminous object is Jyoti. Okay, and Shastra which deals with that kind of luminous objects, that is Jyotish Shastra. That's why Jyotish Shastra is not astrology. Astrology is a different branch. Why? Because it is dependent on astronomy. And in which way, in what way? Just like if you have been a student of mathematics, you must have gone through the calculus and probability, identifying the probability, right? So what we do on the basis of probabilities, we decide the possibility. So astrology is the science which deals with that kind of a study where we try to understand so many probabilities, and on the basis of those probabilities we reach to a conclusion to decide the possibility. That is astrology. So it is completely different, though it is dependent on Jyotish Shastra, astronomy, but it is not exactly Jyotish Shastra. It's called Phalit. Why? Because it is going to give us the actual phal of something or possibility of something. So that's why any kind of declaration which is being told to us in the name of Phalit Jyotish, that this will happen to you, that will happen to you, that's not the exact reality. It's a possibility. You can or we can change it as per our own decisions. And the same thing was the main concept when I tried to explain you para knowledge yesterday. That when you want to reach to your destination, you can find so many ways, but which way, which path you have to take, that will be created by you, that will be taken up by you. So nobody else is going to teach you the exact path. All the sciences, this is electrical, this is electronics, this is chemical, this is civil, all the branches which you are familiar with this at this particular time in this institute also, or in your lifetime, whatever possible knowledge stream you will acquire, that can lead, that can give an indication to reach, how to reach to your destination, but that cannot actually create your own path. You have to create your own path, and that's something para vidya, experiential knowledge, empirical in nature. You have to create, you have to experience, then you will reach to the destination. Then you may be able to define your path to others. This has to be done, and this we always do the same thing. We just think that we are following the already told path. No, we are never following the already told path. We are always creating our own path, and that's the actual reality. So here astronomy is related with the planetary positions for understanding seasonal variations, and Jyotish Shastra becomes Jyotish Shastra. Now for the next diagram, that is 1.4, figure 1.4, figure 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. In 1.4 we have three possible types of the Shastra, that is Shruti, Smriti and Kavya. Before taking this thing, I think here one thing has left, that is Agam. Why it is being left here? Because we have to enter into the mantratmak aspect of Bhasha, and that aspect is going to be dealt in the light of Kashmir Shaiva-darshan, which is based on Agama Shastra. So for a brief introduction, I will define the Agam and then I will leave, because we are going to study the same thing in detail in our course. What is Agam? Agatam Shiva Vaktrebhyah Gatam Cha Girija Shrutau. Agatam Shiva Vaktrebhyah Gatam Cha Girija Shrutau. Tasmat Agamam Proktam Shastram Param Pavanam. This is the definition. Now I will split it. Agatam means came. Shiva Vaktrebhyah means mouth of the Shivas. So, that knowledge which has been received from the mouths of the Shiva. Shiva does not have one mouth. Panchavaktri hai wo, पांच मुख हैं उनके. So, that knowledge which has been received from the mouths of the Shiva. Gatam cha girija shrutau. We have 2 ears. So, dvivachan, shrutau, shruti se shrutau. So, it has been received by whom? Girija, Parvati. So, Parvati or the Girija is the student, is a disciple, and she is receiving that knowledge by listening to the Shiva. So, this kind of dialogue is available to us in Agama Shastra, and that is why this Shastra is known as, supposed to be very pious in nature. This is the definition. And what is the specification of Agam? Suppose in the class we begin with the question of a student, and we all need to head, or you can say in future we try to head towards that kind of student, to become that kind of a student who possesses a caliber to begin the class by his own question. So, if that kind of scenario comes in our time and space, that will become the Vedic period, when the student asks a question and then in reply of that question, teacher starts teaching. So, here what is happening? Girija, Parvati, as a student, she has desires, she has curiosity to know a lot of the things. She asks the questions to Shiva, and now Shiva begins to teach her each and everything in order to answer the curiosity of Parvati. So, in the form of a dialogue between the student and the teacher, this Agama Shastra has been composed. So, we have received this corpus, and this corpus is also very grand, and this corpus is basically showing us 2 major characteristics. Number 1, the caliber of the student, because here the teacher is not so important, the student is very much important. So, first, or the primary importance is of the student who has a caliber to ask the question of that particular kind of curiosity or knowledge. So, first thing is, here the listener becomes more important, or the student becomes more important. Second is, it is a dialogue in the dialogue form. That is the difference of Agam from the Nigam. In Nigam we never say that you should do this thing. We always find the mantras in the way that we are not having any confusion. We are reciting the mantra, you just protect us. We are not having a confusion to know whether you are existing or not. That is why it is already concluded. But in the Agama Shastra, if Parvati is having a question or a doubt on something, that whether it is existing or whether it is not existing, she will ask the question to resolve the doubt or the confusion present inside of her. And then Shiva will start explaining in detail the concept. So, obviously here curiosity of the student dominates, and the dialogue style of writing becomes the mode of understanding, or you can say dialogue style of discourse becomes the primary importance. So, where in the Agamas, in the Nigamas, we have already concluded knowledge. In the Agamas, we are going to conclude something, and the student becomes more important whether he or she has understood or not. Shiva will stop when the curiosity of the student gets answered. Otherwise, the discourse will continue regularly. In this way, we are having the Agama Shastra. So, Agama Shastra has 2 peculiarities. Number 1, listener is more important. Number 2, dialogue style of composition. Now, we are moving ahead because we have to deal it in detail. So, for the sake of little bit understanding, I touched that. Then Shastra can also be classified as Shruti, Smriti and Kavya, as we have already gone through Shruti, then Smriti. So, I am not repeating. Kavya is what? Kavya is creative knowledge, just like poetry, you create it. Just like I told you that Abhigyan Shakuntalam is a kind of natak. which was created by Kalidas. So, whatever literature we create, that becomes a Kavya. Next, in next figure 1.5, we have the classification of Shastra in Paurushe and Aparushe. Now, what is Aparushe? It is understood as non-contingent. Non-contingent knowledge is consists of that knowledge which is not dependent on individual person, time and space. So, if something cannot be published under the head of copyright material of Dr. Surabhi Verma, that means it is non-contingent, because it is relevant all the time. That is why whenever we take any topic on from the Indian discourse, the question of relevance never comes on the subject, it comes on us, whether we are relevant to our time and space, because we do not know what we already had. So, in Indian scenario, the question of relevance gets completely reversed. Whenever you find, get a chance to see any PhD dissertations of any student or PhD defense viva, you go and listen to them, and if specifically someone is presenting something related with the Indian knowledge systems, Indian corpus, then you will find the same kind of thing which I am telling you right now, that relevance, the question of relevance is not like the text is relevant or not. Text is aparusheya. It is already all time. It is eternal, so it is relevant all the time. It is not restricted within a particular time space and within a copyright authority of a person. But the individual who is not aware about that knowledge is not going to be relevant with his own time and space. So, this is the speciality with the aparusheya. And Vedic literature in both the parts, like Agama Shastra also and Nigama Shastra also, they both can't be dated back. They both can't be made an copyright material of any person. That is why they are aparusheya. And then next is Paurusheya. Paurusheya knowledge system consists of that knowledge which is dependent on individual person, time and space, like Kalidas. Kalidas, we are having a particular name, person, his date of birth, place of birth and his works. So, whenever we study, we can identify whatever narration he is presenting, that is relevant or not. So, it depends on the particular time, space and person. We are creating something, we are writing some book, so it is our copyright material, so we can say that whether it is relevant or not. So, question of relevance can be a part of Paurusheya Shastra, but for not, it is inapplicable in the context of Aparusheya Shastra. Next, in the next diagram, figure 1.6, we have the classification of the Shastra in Prabhu Samhit, Sruhad Samhit and Kanta Samhit. This is very interesting classification. When we deal with the Prabhu Samhit Shastra, it says that the words of an authority which are belonging to the universal laws and they can't be modified like the gravitational law, they become Prabhu Samhit. In another example, Prabhu Samhit is like the words which are available to us as an order. Suppose some kind of order is given by our director, so it is a Prabhu Samhit. Some circular is being given by the president, by the prime minister, they are given by some authority, so they have to be followed. So, that is why they become Prabhu Samhita. Sruhad Samhit is the second one. Sruhad Samhit Shastra is that where meaning is more important than the words. Sruhad literally means friend. Suhrida. Hrida means heart. Su means very good. So, that person who looks very good to your heart, that is your friend. Sruhidam. So, that Sruhid is a Sruhad Samhita, and you can experience, you have already experienced this kind of thing, like when your friend gives you an advice, many times that is in a sarcastic way. Comment मार रहे हो, ऐसा कहना चाहते हो. So, what does it mean? The words are not so important, the meaning is more important. what the person tries to convey to you. So, Shruveda Shastra is that where meaning is more important than the words. In that particular way, Hitopadesh and Niti Shatak, these are the Shastras which are written in a Shruveda manner. And if you have ever learnt or read somewhere, who is the writer of Hitopadesha or Panchatantra? Vishnu Sharma. Vishnu Sharma is the writer, and Vishnu, you go through the story of Vishnu Sharma, then you will find that he has to teach the 5 sons of a king, and those 5 sons are not interested in the study at all. And now what he needs to do, as an order from the king, he can't deny, and he has no other choice to teach them who are not interested in the study at all. So, the way of teaching he selects, that becomes a Shruveda Samhita, because somewhere he uses the methodology to actually demonstrate them what should be done in that particular situation. It is not like he teaches everything in theoretical manner. He teaches them to get educated through the experiential method directly. He gives them the task, and in that context itself, there is a story where this quote comes like, Mahajano yena gataha sapantha. He says that this is the quote. He teaches and he tells that whatever meaning you are understanding, you follow accordingly, and each of them follows accordingly. One meaning of the Mahajana is Mahan Janaha, crowd of the people. Larger crowd of the people, larger number of peoples, that is Mahan Jana, Mahajana. Second meaning is Mahan Jana means great persons. So, the meaning is Mahajano yena gataha sapantha. So, great persons go on the road, that becomes the actual path to be followed. This is one meaning. And a crowd of the people goes on the road, that becomes the path, second meaning. And the person who is following, who is understanding whatever meaning the person is understanding, that the person will be following the same thing. So, as per his own wisdom, each son followed the different paths, and one person followed that crowd where they were going for the last rituals of the person. अंत्येष्टि संस्कार के लिए शव यात्रा जा रही थी, बहुत सारे लोग जा रहे थे, and one son understood the meaning that महान जनः येन गतः सापन्थः, and he followed them. So, this is how we have to understand the Shastra theoretically, and then we have to apply it accordingly. So, Vishnu Sharma is doing the same thing. He is in a position not to deny the teaching, and simultaneously how to train them who are not even interested in understanding or studying anything. So, this is the way of Shruveda Samhita Shastra. Then next one is Kanta Samhita Shastra, third one. Kanta Samhita Shastra is the Shastra where words and meaning both can subsidize to give more important experience, and in this case sometimes the words are also not important, the meaning is also not important, and what becomes important, that is the third factor of bhav, to feel. And why the word Kanta is used? Kanta means beloved or a wife. When your wife wants something from you, sometimes she never says it directly. She tries that you understand by yourself. So, she says just opposite of that. If she is willing that you don't go somewhere, she will say, okay, go. That means just opposite sentences, just opposite words are used, and annotation and pitch will decide everything. You go, okay, go to hell, etc., etc. So many words which are not so important. Neither the words are so important, nor the meaning is all important. What is important? You have to understand that she does not want you to go. She does not want you to let you go. She wants that you should be with her. This is Kanta Samhita. So, third type of possible way of teaching something or giving some kind of advice to someone, that is also a style of the Shastra, that is Kanta Samhita Shastra. Now, the last figure 1.7 is showing us the 5 classifications. Very quickly we will go with that. Drisht is already understood, it is directly perceived knowledge. So, whatever is being directly perceived, that is drisht. Just like somebody in yesterday's class asked me difference between this kind of drisht knowledge of rishi and darshan. I will explain in detail later on also, but drisht, just like in this class right now, we are not able to see viruses, bacteria present inside the class by our senses. Right now, we are not having that capacity to visualize them, but when we stain the slides and see in the microscope with the resolution of the lenses, we see them. So, what is there? That means our cognitive apparatus is not sophisticated enough to see that thing. That does not mean they do not exist. So, whatever is drisht by the magnified potential of our cognitive apparatus, that is known as directly perceived knowledge, drisht-jnāna. Second is prokt. Prokt is taught by somebody. The first one who directly perceived that might be the someone else. The person may be someone else. First time किसी और ने देखा था, बाद में बता दिया. So the tradition continues. It becomes prokt. Third is upajyata. Upajyata means sub-discovery of knowledge. For example, I am explaining you the name of Panini. From the first lecture itself, Panini is not the only grammarian available in our tradition. He summarized the 10,000 sutras of his preceding grammarian, who is named as Vyādi. Vyādi is the preceding grammarian who composed his grammar in 10,000 formulas, and Panini summarized 10,000 sutras in 4,000 sutras, and then presented his own compendium Ashtadhyayi. So, this Ashtadhyayi is a kind of rediscovery or sub-discovery of the same knowledge. So, it is upajyata. Then Vyākyaṇa. Vyākyaṇa is a commentary text. When we write commentary on something, that becomes a Vyākyaṇa, just like we invite the speakers. Invited speakers are there in the conferences and seminars. So, we invite them to present, to give some lectures. These lectures are what? They are Vyākyaṇa. So, we want to know their opinion. So, commentary is a kind of opinion given on a particular text. So, Vyākyaṇa is the commentary text. And in the last one, Krita is creative knowledge, just like Kavya. Again the Kavya can summarize or accumulate, incorporate everything like Nāṭya, drama, poetry, prose, just like Bāṛbhattasya Kadambari. Kadambari is a prose, and Bāṛbhatta is the person who has composed it. So, and Kadambari is in a prose way, is a complete compendium, is a single sentence. Samastapada, compound words are used, and if you go through the text, that means it is becoming a single sentence. पूरा का पूरा कादम्बरी एक वाक्य है, कारण he is using the compound style of writing. समास इतना अच्छा उन्हें आता था कि उन्होंने पूरा समस्त पद में एक ही काव्य लिख, पूरा गद्य लिख डाला. So in this way we have these classifications which are available to us, modes of classification, and don't think that this is the only one. 6 are summarized here, collected here to present, to give you the glimpse of how we can classify the Shastras in due course of time, because we have the literature, we have the corpus of thousands of the years. So, and also we were never restricted to make our opinions. We can create, maybe a lot of scholars can create a lot of the modes of classifications. So, it completely depends on the knowledge you have, and that is why this mode of classification can go to any number, but for our understanding in our course we have summarized 6 ones and we have gone through that. For this lecture this is sufficient, and we will be meeting in the next class with the next content in our slides. Thank you.